The courtroom was tense, the kind of silence that only builds when something extraordinary is about to happen. People whispered in the back rows, murmurs of disbelief passing like electric currents through the room. Everyone's attention was fixed on the young boy standing before the bench, his right hand raised solemnly, his left clutching a folder marked with 2 red heart stickers. He couldn't have been more than 8 years old, yet his composure rivaled that of seasoned attorneys. His name was Elijah Walker. The judge, a stern woman with graying hair pulled tightly into a bun, adjusted her glasses and peered down at him. "Elijah Walker, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?" "I do," Elijah replied clearly, his voice echoing across the chamber. Behind him, his mother, Amanda Walker, sat frozen. Her eyes welled with tears, one hand covering her mouth to suppress a sob. No one could have predicted this. Just 2 weeks earlier, Amanda had been arrested. The charges, neglect and endangerment, based on an anonymous report. A single mother working 2 jobs to support her son, Amanda had left Elijah home alone briefly when her babysitter cancelled last minute. In the eyes of some, it was irresponsible. In Elijah's eyes, it was survival. And he wasn't going to let the system take his mother away for doing her best. The morning of the court hearing, Elijah had dressed himself in his finest, a small navy blue suit bought second-hand but pressed to perfection. He borrowed a law book from the local library and spent days watching online court videos. When Amanda's public defender failed to show due to an overbooked schedule, Elijah stood up, marched to the front, and asked the judge if he could speak on his mother's behalf. The judge had hesitated. "Son, you can't just decide to be a lawyer." "I'm not just deciding," Elijah answered. "I've read the case. I know what happened. And I know my mom didn't do anything wrong." The courtroom had gasped. The judge, after a long pause, agreed to allow Elijah to make a statement, an unofficial representation under supervision. The prosecutor objected, but public interest and a local reporter's presence turned the proceedings into something extraordinary. As Elijah began to speak, he opened the folder. Inside were photographs, receipts, and handwritten notes. He stepped forward. "My name is Elijah Walker. I'm in 3rd grade. I love math and dinosaurs, and I want to be a lawyer when I grow up. Not because I want to be rich, but because I want to help people like my mom." He turned to the gallery. "My mom works 2 jobs. She cleans houses during the day and works as a hotel receptionist at night. She's never late. She packs my lunch every day, helps me with homework when she can, and reads to me at bedtime even when she's tired. She didn't want to leave me alone that night. She had no choice." He held up a receipt. "This is proof she called 3 babysitters that day. All cancelled. One had a sick baby, another had a family emergency, and the third never answered. My mom made dinner, locked the doors, left the porch light on, and told me not to open the door for anyone. She left me with a phone, and I had the number for the hotel she works at. I was okay. I was safe." Gasps filled the courtroom. The judge leaned forward. "And how did the authorities get involved?" Elijah's face fell. "Our neighbor, Mr. Thompson. He doesn't like my mom. He always says we don't belong here. He saw her leave and waited. Then he called the police." There was an uncomfortable silence. The prosecutor stood to object, but the judge raised her hand. "Let him finish." Elijah continued. "Mr. Thompson says my mom is a danger to me, but she's the only reason I'm alive. When I got pneumonia last year, she slept next to me on the hospital floor. When I was bullied at school, she made flashcards to help me feel confident again. She gives me everything, even when she has nothing." The courtroom was utterly still. The judge wiped her glasses. Even the prosecutor seemed moved. Amanda's tears streamed freely now. Her hands trembled as she reached for a tissue. The image of her son, so small, yet so brave, burned into her heart. The judge finally spoke. "Elijah, thank you for your words. They've been noted. I will take a recess to consider this new information and review your evidence." As the judge rose, the courtroom erupted into whispers. Elijah returned to his mother and climbed into her arms. She held him tightly, whispering, "You're my hero." But this was only the beginning. What followed next would shake the entire legal system and capture national attention. When court reconvened that afternoon, the mood had shifted. What began as a routine hearing had turned into a viral spectacle. News cameras waited outside. A video of Elijah's courtroom testimony, posted by the local reporter, had already garnered thousands of views within hours. People across the country began sharing the clip, calling him America's youngest advocate. But inside the courtroom, Judge Margaret Delaney was still bound by law, not emotion. She returned to the bench with measured expression. "I have reviewed the evidence provided by Mr. Elijah Walker. Though he is not a licensed legal representative, I have considered his testimony as a character statement and reviewed the supporting documents. We will now proceed." The prosecutor rose, clearly uneasy. "Your Honor, while the child's presentation was compelling, we cannot allow a precedent where minors are allowed to influence legal outcomes. The facts remain. His mother left him alone, which constitutes neglect under municipal statute." Judge Delaney replied, "I am well aware of the statute. I'm also aware that the law must account for context, motive, and hardship. Proceed with your closing argument." Elijah sat beside his mother now, listening intently as the case wound toward its final arguments. Amanda held his hand tightly. Her heart swelled with pride and anxiety. This was a battle she never wanted him to fight, but she couldn't deny the power of his voice. The prosecution made its final argument, citing legal precedent, but the tone felt flat in comparison to Elijah's emotional testimony. Then, the judge allowed Amanda to make a brief statement. "I've made mistakes," she admitted quietly. "But I've never stopped trying to give my son the safest, fullest life I could. That night, I felt like I failed. But I did what I had to, with the little I had. I'm not perfect, Your Honor, but I love him more than life." Judge Delaney nodded and called a brief recess before her final decision. During that break, something unexpected happened. A man approached Elijah and Amanda in the hallway, well-dressed, kind-eyed, carrying a leather briefcase. "My name is Gerald Banks," he introduced himself. "I'm a civil rights attorney. I saw the footage of Elijah this morning and came straight from Atlanta. I'd like to offer my services pro bono. If the judge doesn't dismiss this case, I'll file for a formal appeal. This situation is outrageous." Amanda was stunned. Elijah, wide-eyed, looked up at the man as if meeting a real-life superhero. "Are you sure?" Amanda asked. Banks smiled. "Positive. No family should go through this alone." Back in the courtroom, the final moments arrived. The judge entered. The audience stilled. After reviewing the case, listening to the testimony, and evaluating the context, I find the defendant, Amanda Walker, not guilty of neglect or endangerment. The court recognizes the extraordinary circumstances and the profound maturity displayed by young Elijah Walker. Applause erupted. The bailiff called for order, but the emotion in the room couldn't be contained. Amanda cried openly. Elijah hugged her so tightly it was as if he feared she might still be taken away. Later that day, outside the courthouse, Reporters swarmed the pair. Elijah answered calmly, "I wasn't trying to be famous. I just wanted to help my mom." Gerald Banks stood beside them and spoke to the cameras. "This isn't just a feel-good story. It's a call to action. We must re-examine how the system treats hard-working families in crisis." Elijah's bravery is a symbol of something deeper. Justice needs reform. By nightfall, national news stations picked up the story. Interviews were requested. Legal experts debated whether this moment might spark broader changes in how family services assess single-parent households. Meanwhile, Elijah returned home to his modest apartment with Amanda. Neighbors, including the formerly skeptical ones, came with gifts, food, and apologies. Mr. Thompson was notably absent. That evening, Amanda tucked Elijah into bed. "You were amazing," she whispered. "I meant every word, Mama." "I know you did. But promise me something." "What?" "Promise me you'll stay a kid a little longer. I don't want the world to take your childhood away because you had to save me." Elijah nodded slowly. "I promise. But I still want to be a lawyer." "Just later." Amanda kissed his forehead. "Then you'll be the best one there ever was." But as their story spread, powerful figures took notice. People whose interest would take Elijah and his mother on a path no one could have imagined. The morning after the verdict, Elijah and Amanda woke up to a knock on their door. Amanda opened it cautiously, only to find a local councilwoman and a TV crew on the front steps. "Miss Walker," said Councilwoman Denise Moore with a warm smile, "your son's story has inspired the city. We'd like to present you both with a Community Leadership Award. And there's something else." Amanda blinked in disbelief. Elijah peeked around her waist, still half asleep in his pajamas. Denise continued, "A local scholarship foundation has agreed to sponsor Elijah's education, starting now and extending all the way through law school, should he choose to go." Amanda gasped. "You're serious?" The councilwoman nodded. "Very. He's already done more for justice in 1 week than most of us do in a lifetime." That evening, Elijah was honored at a town hall event. He wore the same navy blue suit, this time with a new red tie donated by a local store. He stood on stage, hand in hand with his mother, as applause thundered through the auditorium. In his short speech, Elijah said, "I didn't think standing up for my mom would make me a hero. I just didn't want to lose her. But if I can help other kids like me, I'll do it again." The community rallied behind them. Amanda received job offers, including a full-time position with benefits at a local non-profit. Volunteers offered to help with childcare. And Gerald Banks, the civil rights attorney, became a family friend and mentor to Elijah. Weeks later, a major university invited Elijah to visit their law school. Professors met with him. Law students shook his hand like he was one of their own. It was all overwhelming, but Elijah never let it go to his head. His focus remained on his mother and his promise to stay a kid. Yet behind all the joy, there was still pain. Elijah asked Amanda one night, "What would have happened if no one listened to me?" Amanda paused. "Then we would have found another way. Because that's what we do." "But the world listened, sweetheart. That means we help it listen for others too." Months passed, and Elijah's story remained a symbol of hope and change. Inspired by the incident, the city reviewed its child welfare procedures. Training programs were launched to improve how reports were investigated, emphasizing cultural awareness and socio-economic sensitivity. The judge herself requested to mentor young students interested in law. One day, Elijah received a handwritten letter from the White House. It read, "Dear Elijah, I watched your courtroom testimony with great admiration. You reminded the nation what courage looks like, and how justice sometimes comes from the most unexpected voices. Never stop believing in the power of truth and love. Sincerely, the President of the United States. Amanda framed the letter and hung it beside a photograph of Elijah in court, hand raised, file in hand. As for Mr. Thompson, the neighbor who'd reported Amanda, he moved away quietly. But before he left, he sent a note that read simply, "I was wrong." 1 year later, Elijah stood in front of a group of students at his school's career day. He wore a child-sized barrister's robe given to him by a retired judge. "My name is Elijah Walker," he said proudly. "And one day, I will be a lawyer. But more importantly, I'll be someone who listens, because that's where justice begins." The crowd applauded. Amanda stood in the back, tears in her eyes. In a world that often overlooks the quiet struggles of families like theirs, Elijah's voice had broken through, not with power or wealth, but with love, truth, and an unshakable bond between a mother and son. The story of Elijah Walker wasn't just a courtroom miracle. It was a testament to what happens when we dare to believe, even when the odds say we shouldn't.